Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2018 and our Gibraltar experiment where we're seeing what would happen if you gave Gibraltar the perfect team. Now today is the final part of this series, so we're going to go forward to the point of retirement for most of these players. And then we're also going to go into the future to see what happens to Gibraltar following all of this success in the future. Because, of course, while these players are the only ones actually loaded in the game, the greyed out players are based on the reputation of the nation. So there's every chance, if this reputation stays high, they could have top quality players in the greyed out areas that allow them to keep competing at the World Cup and on other kind of stages. So we're going to have a look at how each player has done. We'll take a more in detailed look at each individual player, how they did at their clubs, what they won, their biographies, things like that. So you can pause the video at any point if you want to look in more detail at certain screens. We'll also have a look at Gibraltar and some of their records internationally. So there should be plenty to get our teeth into. So we're going to go forward 5 years, I think. So you can see at the moment most of them are 31, 32 years old. They aren't going to last till 40. So we'll see who's still around at that point. I think I might go 4 years just to be safe, because I think they'll still be playing at 36. But some of them may well start to retire. Well, we are now 4 years into the future, and the interesting thing is that all of the Gibraltar players have now retired from international duty. I'm not actually sure which ones are even still in the game at this point, so we'll have to go through the clubs that I remember them playing at and see if they're still there. But you can see they're all completely gone. Greyed out players across the board for Gibraltar. And as far as I'm aware, the players actually retired at the end of the calendar year. So the end of 2035. So if we look at the national team schedule, or just look at the overview to begin with, you can still see they're ranked second in the world at the moment. And when we do look at their schedule, you can see they're winning games without any of our original 11 in the team. None of those players are part of the original 11, and yet they've beaten Norway 4-0 with players who are completely greyed out and don't even have a club. I mean, that player looks sensational. Let's go back to that screen. Giovanni Garcia, he's got stunning stats, and yet he's not even at a club or in the game. If we look at Ferrugia, a striker, he's a brilliant striker. So maybe the success can continue with these randomly generated players that are just in the team and doing so well. And then you can see, if we go even further back, it looks like they actually retired last season. We got here 17th of November, last that I can see of any of the players, and that is Morgan Crowther. But we do want to have a look at how they performed in the different cup competitions. So at the end of last year, they did win the International League. Ross McMahon and James Garcia getting the goals for Gibraltar. If we go before that, then you can see that they were knocked out by Austria in the second round of the World Cup. 4-1 defeat there. Morgan Crowther did get a goal, but not enough to get them through. Scored quite a few goals actually, Crowther there, but not really changing much for them at the World Cup. So no last hurrah there, but they did finally win the Confederations Cup. Dylan Fixter getting a couple of goals to help them win it over Argentina, who they actually beat earlier in the tournament as well. Look at how long they'd gone there without conceding a single goal. That is really quite impressive. And they won the International League on penalties against Holland. 1-1 there, beating England in the semi-finals too. And then we're back to where we left off with the European Championship, which they won on penalties. A red card in extra time for Spain allowed Gibraltar to win it on penalties. So it's been a really interesting sort of finish for those players. I mean, that's a huge winning run right up to the World Cup second round. They won so many games going back years until the Euro Championship game against France. But even before then, they hadn't lost in tournament football since the last time they played Spain, where they went out on penalties instead of beating them on penalties. So an interesting finish there for Gibraltar. If we have a look at the history for Gibraltar and what they've achieved with these players, you can see they've won the World Cup twice, they've won the European Football Championship twice, the European International League 4 times, and now the Confederations Cup as well. If we look at the individual screen for each of these, you can see Spain, Gibraltar, England, Gibraltar, Italy before that. So 2 of the last 5 is not bad. European Championship wise, did they ever retain the European Championship? That's the question to ask. They didn't. It was broken up by Holland So you've got Belgium, Gibraltar, Holland, Gibraltar, but they're winning about half of the international tournaments, but they've actually won the last 3 international leagues, which is also every 2 years. 4 in total. That is not a bad return whatsoever. I think that actually means they've won just under half of every European international league, which is why they're second in the world rankings at the moment. You can see they have bounced around a little bit between first and third, but nothing too dramatic. So it'll be interesting to see when we go forward, maybe another 10 years, exactly how they've done in the international rankings. But if we have a look at their landmarks, we can see just a running commentary of everything they ever did. We want to look at the records. There we go. So you can see the highest world ranking was first, which they've been a lot of times now. Lowest world ranking, 205th. It'll be interesting to see if they drop down that low. Highest attendance, 30,000 people against Portugal. Lowest, 4,000. 10-0 win against Andorra. 7-0 defeat against Poland before this started. And the highest scoring game at 10-1 against Mali. Highest, most expensive transfer, Dylan Fixter, going to United for £79 million. And the all-time top goal scorer was actually Lautaro and not Crowther, which is quite a thing there for that to have happened. If we look, that's skipping ahead a little bit there. Highest average rating also Lautaro as well, with an 8.49 in 2018. Youngest player, Lautaro again. He seemed to have picked up all the awards. None for Crowther there whatsoever. Most games winning a row though, 28. Most games without losing, 45-game unbeaten streak across 3 years. That was actually pretty much what we were looking at just now when they went so long without losing a game. Most games lost in a row, 5. I'm not too fussed about those things. If we look at the rankings there, you can see how they've ranked over time. First for so long. They have dropped down to second now, but sticking around there. But their rise was pretty meteoric. Finally getting there. It took them 5 years to reach first place, but they did manage to do it. And you can see their lowest each year here as well, but it was only really third place. It was as low as they dropped at any point. Highest attendances, 28,000 there, 30,000 against Portugal, maxing out their stadium, which I believe is in Portugal. And in terms of results, you can see some massive wins there for them as well. That's going to the wrong screen. Sequences, most games won in a row there. 22 in 2030, 28 in 2031. A lot of games that year. Not too fussed about those ones. The player records we want to have a look at. You can see Morgan Crowther, top goal scorer for so many seasons, but Lautaro in these first seasons banging in more goals and obviously keeping closer to Crowther than Crowther did to Lautaro right at the start of this. And if we look at most goals in a match, that record, Crowther for both of them. He also got a hat-trick back here as well. A couple of 4-goal hauls for him. And most assists, fixed a little bit of variation here across the different players. But the most assists, 9, happened quite a few times. Clean sheets, Bilson getting pretty much all of those. Highest average rating, varying actually, quite a lot of variation there. Lautaro getting a few. Looks like Lautaro was the original kind of main man, and then eventually Crowther seemed to take over in terms of goal scoring. And you can see man of the matches there, 5 for Fixter, 6 for Josh Eccles in 2026, the record there. If we have a look at fastest goal, why not? 34 seconds, 10 seconds for Lautaro, a 12 seconds goal as well, 12 seconds for Luke Rowe, and 17 seconds for Luke Rowe there as well. So that's actually quite impressive that they got a 10 and 12 seconds 3 times. And on transfers, you can see here the big transfers. The main one was Dylan Fixter. There wasn't really much money because none of the players actually really left their clubs. They all sort of stayed exactly where they were. Interesting to see Sean Green moving about a little bit though. If we have a look at Sean Green and see if he's still playing football, you can see he is a right back with Spurs still at 36 years old. The only Spurs player here, I think, was at Arsenal for pretty much the entirety of his career. Obviously, you can pause this screen if you want to have a look at this in more detail. But spent pretty much all of his time at Arsenal, and then at the top, finally in the kind of end of his career, he moved to Spain, spent a bit of time in Madrid before coming back to Spurs in England. One way to move from Arsenal to Spurs is via Real Madrid, I suppose. But if we have a look at his milestones, how do we see his biography? There it is, there's his biography. Arsenal legend, currently at Spurs, was born in 1999. Made his debut at Coventry, as we all know. What competitions did he win? That's what we really, really want to know. Green has built up a phenomenal record of 18 competition wins. You've got the Confederations Cup, the FA Cup, European Super Cup a couple of times, Euro Cup countless times. I mean, look at Arsenal in the Euro Cup, and he even won one with Spurs right at the end there. So many European Cups and never a Champions League. Can you imagine winning the Europa League that many times and not the Champions League? European Football Championship with Gibraltar, World Cup a couple of times as well, International League. We've seen all of those awards. He was only there for 3 of those, though. Missed the 4th one. And he won quite a few awards. He was the only one to win the European Golden Boy, as far as I can remember. If we go back there, he was there. Oh no, Dylan Fixter won it in 2018 with Barcelona. But Sean Green, the only other one to actually win the European Golden Boy. Euro Cup Player of the Season 3 times, World Cup Best Player runner-up. English Footballer of the Year, though, that's an interesting award. We can see quite a lot of them there. Ewan Robert, actually not too many of them. Morgan Crowther did win it, Sean Green won it, Morgan Crowther again, Lautaro, but none of these ever winning the Best Player in the World. Best Player in Europe runner-up is quite interesting. I don't think many of them ever achieved that either. You can see there, none there. Ewan Robert, though, absolutely smashing it for Liverpool, it has to be said. We'll take a look at him in a bit. And European Championship Best Player and Spanish Player of the Year 3rd place. So an interesting history for Sean Green there. If we go back and have a look at Aaron Whitmore, who moved from Spurs to Man City, still there now. He's the left back. If we look at his career stats, you can see he was at Spurs for a very, very long time in his career. Moved there for 29 million from Coventry and then went to Man City. 34 million pound transfer there right at the end of his career as well. Interesting that a lot of these players moving at the end of their career. He won 15 titles in his time, or competitions at least. Club World Championship with Spurs in 2018. FA Cup, Community Shield with Spurs. He won the Community Shield with Man City, but FA Cup with Spurs. European Super Cup, the Euro Cup twice. And he did win the Champions League with Spurs back in 2018 and then again with Man City in 2036. So 2 Champions League titles for him to go along with his European Championships, World Cups and European International League. So he has achieved the highest but never won the Premier League, which is quite interesting. I don't know if he'd be winning it this time either, but interesting that he never managed to do that. If we take a look next at one of the big names, Dylan Fixter, certainly a player who popped up an awful lot, still at Manchester United, valued at 9 million. I think he will have had a really impressive career because he moved to Barcelona for £20 million and then to United for what eventually cost £90 million. So you can see he was a good goal scorer but also a good assist provider when he moved to Manchester United, and that continued with him playing pretty much all of the Premier League games thereafter. And if we have a look at his biography, you can see it's quite a few paragraphs here. And he's won 39 competitions. I think he's going to be one of the most, if not the most, decorated player. We should keep a tab of which player actually won the most competitions. And you can let me know that down in the comments if I don't spot it myself. But he won the Confederations Cup, Club World Cup twice with United, Community Shield a lot of times, don't care about that. Carabao Cup he won a few times, FA Cup 3 of those, Spanish Super Cup with Barcelona, Spanish Cup, European Super Cup with both teams, Barcelona and United. Champions League he won 3 times with 2 different clubs. That's quite impressive, including back-to-back with Manchester United. And then you've got the international leagues as well. He won the Spanish First Division La Liga 4 times and then picked up 6, I think, Premier League titles. That's a decade of titles in his career. Absolutely exceptional. Add that to the 3 Champions Leagues, 2 World Cups, 2 International Leagues. He could well be one of the most decorated players in football history. I can't remember who is the most decorated player in football history. I think it might be Xavi. But I might be pulling that out of thin air. I'm not sure. I know Ibrahimovic has won a lot of league titles, but not that many in the grand scheme of things. But maybe you can let me know that if you know it down below. And he's won several awards. Spanish League Young Player of the Year 4 times. European Golden Boy. and World Cup best player twice. That's an impressive thing to do. Spanish League player, runner-up, and Confederations Cup best player. So he's won quite a lot of awards. If we take a look, I'm going to save Morgan Crowther actually for the end and see how he gets on there. If we go to Liverpool, because they have got quite a few of the Gibraltarian players, then we can see if we go to their senior squad, I think there should be 3 or 4 of them here. And if we sort them by nationality, there they are, 4 of them here that we can knock out in one go. We've got Lewis White, who's a centre-back and defensive midfielder. Still got incredible stats at 36 years old. And you can see, always been at Liverpool since leaving Coventry, 27.5 million. Not had the best average rating, but he is a defender. But even then, it's actually not that great for a player with the stats that he's got. If we look at his milestones, he's actually won 53 competitions with Liverpool, more than Fixter won with Barcelona and Manchester United, which says a lot. Confederations Cup, Club World Cup, he's won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Several Community Shields, Carabao Cup. I mean, look at the number of Carabao Cups there. Liverpool absolutely cleaning up in the Carabao Cup. I'm going to have a quick break here and just look at the history. And you can see here, Liverpool won it so many times, 5 years in a row. I've not really seen that with one of the English Cup competitions before, but they've won it so many times there. A few for United as well, only 1 for Man City, which is going to hinder their players a little bit. But that is so many that he managed to win there. It will say it here actually, how many Carabao Cups he won. And he won it 10 times in 16 years. He also won the FA Cup 5 times, the European Super Cup he won quite a few times. Champions League, he won 4 Champions League titles. Will anybody win 5? That's the question. And you can see the other competitions there. And the Premier League, he managed to pick up, I think, 7, 8, 9, something around that. A lot of competition wins. I think Liverpool might be the most decorated club throughout this period. But Lewis White, 53 for him. Now, can any of the others best him just by being less injury free? We've got Jack Burrows here, who's a bit of a central midfielder. You can see his ratings down there. And if we go to his milestones, he's won 52, so 1 less. The main ones we want to look at, he has actually won 5 Champions Leagues with Liverpool, which the other one didn't manage to do. So he's missed out on other competitions, but 5 Champions Leagues with 1 club is an incredibly impressive thing to do, especially across 9 years. Great longevity with Liverpool, but also so much success winning that many competitions. There's also Luke Rowe, 53, the record, don't forget. Those are his career stats as a defender, midfielder and left midfielder. If we look at him, he had 51 competitions and he won 5 Champions Leagues too, so ties with the other guy there, and a lot of Premier League titles. They'll all have the same number of Premier League titles. So, and finally, if we look at Tom Bilson, the goalkeeper, he would be an interesting one to look at because his career stats not that great, down in the 6.8s rather than the 7s. But if we look at his milestones, you can see that he's won 57 competitions because he's much less likely to be injured. And I think that's why he will probably be the highest winner of competitions. So 1 Confederations Cup. If we do it this way, actually, he won the Checkatrade Trophy, Sky Bet, and the Sky Bet League 2 with Coventry in 2018. One of the few players that stayed to the end, I'm remembering now. Joined Liverpool for just £6.75 million, has made 657 league appearances, which is surely going to be the highest, certainly in league appearances. Lifted the Confederations Cup, Club World Cup 6 times, Community Shield 6 times, Carabao Cup 10 times, FA Cup 5 times, European Super Cup 6 times as well. And he did win the Champions League 6 times. That is without doubt the record. 6 times in 10 years Liverpool won the Champions League, and he was between the sticks every time. 2 European Championships, 2 World Cups, 3 International Leagues, and 8 Premier Division titles. That is a just absolutely insane haul. Sky Bet League 2 Player of the Year, Premier Division Golden Glove on 12 occasions, 7 best goalkeepers in the Champions League, 2 best goalkeepers in the World Cup. and World Goalkeeper of the Year on 3 occasions. The only player from Gibraltar to win an international award like that, I have no doubt. He's won it 3 times between 2022 and 2035. Better than Buffon that, the way he managed to do that. So he's probably one of the most, if not the most decorated player of them all. And if we go and have a look at Chelsea, I'm sure they've got a player here for us to take a quick look at as well. I'm going to try and speed through the remaining players until we get to Crowther and Lautaro. We can see Josh Eccles here for Gibraltar. 200 grand a week he's on at 36 years old. You can see his career stats here as a right back. Quite a few assists from right back, but with Chelsea the entire time. And in his biography, you can see 14 competition wins, nowhere near as much as the other players. A couple of Carabao Cups, 3 FA Cups, and the rest are all international. So Chelsea have not had a sustained period of success in this game. I'm pretty sure there was a player at PSG who might well give in a good running. Ross McMahon, Eddie Howe, the current PSG manager. But I think Ross McMahon might actually be the most decorated player, because PSG in France will be competing for many more competitions. And if we look at his career stats, he is another centre-back and a decent rating, nothing too special. He was at Coventry a bit longer than anybody else. He was in League 2 and in League 1 with them. Quite interesting that. I don't really know what's going on there. I think it's because it's a former player's kind of record. But if we look at this, 57 competition wins, exactly the same figure there. And he won the League 1 Conformer Players Most Promising Player award. But he won the Coupe de la Ligue quite a few times with PSG. I think he was better off again doing this here. Won the Coupe de la Ligue 13 times, won the French Cup 6 times, European Super Cup, Champions League once. So PSG only once winning that competition. Then you've got his international one, the Trophy des Champions 10 times, International League 4 times, and 15 French League titles. Is quite funny if we look at the past winners here. Monaco stopping him 3 times, but he's won a title in France every other year of his career. So that is not bad going whatsoever. Now, I think that should get us there. I'm trying to think whether any other clubs had a player. We've looked at the Spurs, Arsenal, PSG and Chelsea one. I think we're just about there. Apologies in advance if we've missed anyone. We've seen Dylan Fixer at Man United, but now it's time to look at Morgan Crowther and Lautaro from Manchester City and see who had the most. It'd be brilliant if somebody could pull up some kind of table at the bottom comparing these two players. Absolutely incredible if somebody could do that. But you can see 30 goals in the league. He hit twice, Morgan Crowther. Really up in his game. 406 goals in 687 league games. 7.65 rating. 406 goals. That's what we need to remember. I'm going to very quickly go through all of these so you can see the highest number of goals he got in one season. 42 back then. Then you got 26, 36, 45, 46 in the 29-30 season. And then we get towards the top. 46, the best goal scoring returns he has ever had in 60 games in the 29-30 season. So if we look at his milestones, 46 competition wins, nowhere near the 57 of the Liverpool and PSG players. But he's won a lot more individual awards. And obviously he's won the Champions League a few times as well. 5 Champions League titles for Morgan Crowther. So up there with some of the best. And then he's won the English Players Young Player of the Year 6 times, Champions Cup forward 5 times. Has he won any of the really, really major? English Footballer of the Year twice, English Players Player of the Year twice, top goal scorer 6 times, Champions Golden Boot, European Golden Shoe on 3 occasions, but he's never won the best player in Europe. He's won that runner-up in that twice, but never won the Golden Ball despite all of this success, which is really, really just so strange that he's never managed to do that. But if we look at the Premier Division Top Goal Scorer Award, you can see he's won this so many times, beating out Ndiaye, who he also played with, Rashford, who he played with, and Lautaro there, who we're going to have a look at now. So 406 goals in his career for Crowther. If we look at Lautaro's number of goals, then we can see right at the bottom here, only 361. He got more for Coventry in his first season, but not as many goals as Crowther. across all competitions. I think the record for Crowther was 46 goals. We've got 35 there, 36, 37. But it doesn't look like he managed to get anywhere near as many goals for Man City as Crowther did for Manchester United. And we can see here, he only got 26 competition wins compared to the others. So after joining them for 11.25 million, 680 league appearances, won the Confederations Cup, Club World Cup 4 times, Community Shield just twice, Carabao Cup just once, FA Cup twice, European Super Cup twice, and 5 Champions League titles. So few of everything else, but 5 Champions League titles. And he only ever won 2 Premier League titles. So Manchester City, a European club for sure. Footballer of the Year in England once, top goal scorer twice, Young Player of the Year, and it doesn't look like he got any of the major ones. European Golden Shoe, Golden Boot, Club World Best Player. Yeah, it doesn't look like any of them ever won the Golden Ball, which is so disappointing that they weren't able to do that. But interesting just how successful Lautaro was. And if we look finally at the Premier League kind of past winners over this period, Liverpool absolutely ran away with just about everything, which is not something you hear very often, but it was the benefit of them taking 4 Gibraltarian players from Coventry, and you can see here it just sort of passed between Liverpool and United. City had a couple of wins in there, but they were the only teams to win the Premier League throughout this entire period, and most of that is down to the Gibraltarian players they had. United with Fixter and Crowther, 2 of the best attacking players, and Liverpool just had such a strong spine with these players. If we have a look at the Champions League, the final thing to have a look at, you can see the past winners. Again, it's pretty much the same 3 clubs, but interesting, United didn't win quite as many of these. You can see Liverpool 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in total, 5 for United and 5 for Man City, 1 for Spurs right at the start as well. But the only other Champions League titles were these 2 won by PSG and Barcelona. Since then, it's been English dominance across the board, and I think that's probably all we're going to take a look at in the current time period. But for those of you curious, I am just going to go, because I know this has already been a long video, we're going to go forward one last time just to see what happened to Gibraltar. Well, we are now 10 years further on into the future, and as you can see, they dropped down to 116th in the world. But what we really want to have a look at is their senior squad schedule. You can see they're still winning games, 2-0 over Malta. But if we go back to the 36th season, which is when we left off, you can see here, this is with the kind of random grayed out players. Took them all the way to the quarterfinals of the European Championship before losing to Germany 1-0. They carried on winning matches afterwards because of that high reputation. And then a perfect record here where they actually beat France to win another international league without any of the original players in there. And that continued throughout the World Cup qualifiers, and the following year at the World Cup, they were knocked out by Portugal in the second round on penalties. And then the defeats started to come in the European League, not qualifying for the knockout stages. Doing well in the European Championship qualifiers though. I think they would almost certainly have qualified out of that group. And in the European Championships, the defeats really started to come thick and fast. They managed to get out of their group with a 2-0 win over Turkey right at the end, before losing to England in the second round. Struggled in the next division and in the World Cup qualifiers, despite probably being top seeds. Meant they didn't qualify for a World Cup for the first time in a long time. And then you can see all these defeats. Wins over Andorra, home and away, but nothing else there. No wins here. Drawing with San Marino 1-1 in a friendly, the best they could do. They did beat Russia, Kazakhstan twice there, but didn't qualify for the World Cup again. And you can see beating Malta the last game that they've managed to win. But they did win an extra competition in this period of time. So you can see they've won 2 World Cups, runner-up in 2026, 2 European Championships, 5 European International Leagues, 2 runner-up competitions, winner of the Confederations Cup, runner-up twice, and runner-up in the French Youth Invitational. So a really impressive run of absolutely everything there. You can see their world ranking here, how it declined over the last sort of 10 years, started to drop off, and then absolutely just dive bombed to the bottom, way down to 168th at one point, but then managed to bounce back up with, I think, probably the win over Russia, getting them up to kind of 116th. And if we look at their best 11, no record available, so we can't look at that unfortunately, but they're still there. All-time top goal scorer Lautaro with 128, so that's something to look at least. But that is going to be the end of this experiment. There will be a brand new experiment out in a couple of days' time. So do subscribe if you want to see that. And drop a like on the video if you enjoyed this very in-depth look at the final ending of this experiment. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you guys have too. You can support the channel on Twitter and Patreon with the links in the description if you feel like you would like to. But until next time, see ya.